Call of Juarez franchise always appealed to me in the past because of its Western themes and setting. The games told interesting enough stories and had engaging enough characters that they were interesting despite their lack of polish. Call of Juarez the Cartel, however, doesn't even succeed in this regard. The characters are unlikable, and the story is almost completely forgettable. But beyond that, the Cartel feels rushed, underdeveloped, and repetitive to the point of frustration. In the leap to the modern age, something good got left behind.
Is Susie in her room?
She's busy with a client.
It's gonna have to be a quickie.
The Cartel may be running on developer Techland's latest version of the Chrome engine, but it looks like a game from several years ago. Textures are constantly popping in, and it's downright garish looking at times. On top of this, characters are constantly clipping through things, magically reappearing ahead of you when they were just behind you, and sometimes even speaking when they're already dead.
Time for a beatdown, bitch.
It's hard to even start to get into the story when you're constantly seeing generic, poorly made environments and repeated characters. The story also fails to engage. The characters are caricatures of American law enforcement officials, with laughable dialogue that makes them hard to take seriously. Moreover, all the intrigue and emotion that Techland attempts to seed into the story is pointless because they never create any good bonds or trust between the characters. You don't like them, you know they don't like each other, and you really don't care what happens to them.
LAPD on the ground.
As far as shooting mechanics are concerned, Call of Juarez the Cartel isn't bad. The guns are fun enough to shoot, and there are always plenty of enemies to kill, but the levels are so utterly repetitive that I could literally predict what was going to happen next. At some point in every level, there will be a boring driving sequence, followed by a bunch of guys to shoot, and then several doors to kick in, triggering a slow-mo shooting scene. All of these level components are fine the first couple times around, but they're overdone to an extent that makes it feel like the game's length is artificially extended. I appreciate the inclusion of 3-player campaign cooperative play, but this isn't really the type of game I'd want to play with a friend. The AI allies are surprisingly adept at killing enemies, and, unlike human players, they will never get taken down. If you and your friends die, it's game over. Worse still, you can only play levels that all the players have reached, so you can't just have a friend jump into your campaign if you're ahead of them. You can play through the campaign with each of the 3 characters to get a unique ending and slightly different take on the story, but it's just not fun enough to warrant the effort. Multiplayer exists, but it's mundane. It includes no modes or does anything that you couldn't get even better in any number of other shooters. The controls also work well for single player, and feel appropriately calibrated to aim at the AI, but against players, no amount of tweaking can get them to feel right.
I will make mine arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and I will bathe in the blood of my mother-f***ing enemies.
Call of Juarez the Cartel is a poor change of pace for the franchise. Taking the story into the modern times seems to have robbed it of its passion and charm, replacing it with asinine characters and more cuss words than an Al Pacino flick. It's not the worst shooter I've played, but it's got all the problems of a budget title and few redeeming qualities to make it worth recommending. For more on Call of Juarez the Cartel, go to IGN.com.